Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey shined in the second half of last year, but will their connection continue to blossom, or will the Chargers' new backfield steal the show? We dig into the top three storylines for the Los Angeles Chargers entering 2025 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. On today's show, we are going to be digging into the top three storylines for the Chargers entering this season. We've been doing this for all 32 teams, and we are now into the AFC West. We hit on the Chiefs on Friday's show, so if you missed that, go listen. And to end the week, we will discuss the Raiders and the Broncos. But today, let's focus on the Chargers. And it starts with Justin Herbert and this passing game, right? Because at the start of last season, it started very, very slowly with their new head coach and Jim Harbaugh, who we know loves to run the ball and play defense. But it started to open up towards the second half of the year. So right now, Herbert is sitting at quarterback 10 in consensus rankings. That's behind guys like Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Bo Nix, who are right ahead of him. He was the quarterback 11 last season in total points, quarterback 13 on average. However, like I said, the second half, it really started to blow up for Herbert in this passing game. Averaged nearly 20 points per game from weeks 8 through 18, while averaging just under 12 points per game through the first 7 weeks of the season. So, Vinny, let me ask you, what do you think Herbert's potential is? Like, ceiling is entering this year. Does he have that top 5 potential? Because we've only seen him do that once in his career so far.
Yeah, and you have to go back a while to see that. I mean, it was just when he was getting started and being in a different offense totally. And we knew there were going to be some scoring limitations in the Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman offense initially, because there were a couple things going on. They were reintroducing a new backfield. They wanted to run the ball, protect their defense. The other thing was they had transition at wide receiver. Gone were some guys that he'd known for a long time. I know they were hurt a lot, but they were still not there. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and now you've moved on from another guy that's been there the whole time, Josh Palmer. So he's going to have to figure it out again with a little bit of a change in the receiving core. You have Quentin Johnston. He has not lived up to expectations as a first-round pick. Ladd McConkey has been fantastic. He came on strong, and I think that was correlated to the production we saw later in the season for Justin Herbert. Now, we're going to think about his playoffs, right? He was terrible in the playoffs. He was just awful. We thought he was going to ride a hot streak, and why we thought that, because he was really good in the last 3 games here for the Chargers. He had 284 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 281 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 346 yards and 2 touchdowns. That were his final 3 games numbers. I mean, that tells you what you're looking for, right? That there's that potential of that consistency of the high scoring in this particular offense. Now, you figure they're going to be a little bit better with Najee Harris in there. I really thought they would invest more heavily at tight end, but it turns out they're okay with keeping Will Dissly, and they're bringing in Tyler Conklin to be a tight end by committee here. So that's not the most exciting way to find targets and guys that can come through. But Dissly has had some years when healthy. That's been the question. Same thing with Conklin. So these are not zeros at tight end. You have Mike Williams back, which is an interesting twist, as well as Najee Harris, the rookie. So I'd say this receiving core has to be a little bit better because McConkey is established. Williams, there is some past there. Harris is a player that we can look at. And Johnson wasn't a total zero. He was catching some big plays at certain times for Herbert. So when you look at the weapons, the other thing that comes to mind is they blew up the J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards situation after only 1 year. That was it. They saw it. They were very productive. They bring in Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton. So these are a lot of the things that we'll talk about later in the show. But here we are with a lot of newness around Justin Herbert. His offensive line, however, can be really good if Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt hold up at the tackles. So I think the sky's the limit, really, here, Michelle, for Justin Herbert. I mean, I think this offense could get really rolling. What I liked about him before he got into the playoffs, he was protecting the ball and rather efficient. So that was the first thing that Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman wanted: protect the ball, do some things there. Now I'm looking for use the kid's big arm, push it downfield a little bit more. You paid him a lot of money. Let him go earn it out there and pass in some of these games, and not just go into shell and really just turn up the gas on some of these teams with your potential now in the passing game. So I think that's what they're going to do, right? I think they wanted to see what he could do, but now they can rev it up a little bit. The weapons are a little bit more comfortable for him. So again, what I want is just the Chargers to just be what we've seen from 49ers teams with Jim Harbaugh, or the Ravens teams with Greg Roman. Just explode a little bit. Just go for the balance, get some explosive plays. And I think they could come here. So I think he's a very good value right now at QB10.
I do too, because you really have to look at his season in two halves. So like you brought up, he lost both of his, wide receivers that he had been playing with throughout his entire career, and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and had a whole new cast, and he had to get, acclimated with those guys, had a whole new coaching staff. He was not, they were not throwing the ball a lot to start the season. And I think that just overall made his year look much worse. I mean, even rushing, right? Like he wasn't running the ball at all. He ended up with 306 rushing yards last year. It's actually a career high for him. But in the first 7 weeks, he had 28 rushing yards. For 7 games, 28 total rushing yards. So that means 270 plus of those rushing yards came in from weeks 8 through 18. Yep. And we were seeing him put up some 30, 40, even a 60 rushing yard game. That's huge that they're letting him do that. We know he has that capability, but also his passing touchdowns were low last year at 23. They've been actually low for the last 3 seasons, but when you look at his passing touchdowns last year, again, only 6 passing touchdowns through the first 7 games of the season. I mean, that's less than 1 touchdown a game. That's not Herbert's, skill set at all. And then the rest of the season, he was averaging nearly 2 touchdowns per game from weeks 8 through 18. And he had 9 of his 23 touchdowns in the last 4 games of the season. So we did see him start to feel that connection with his playmakers. And I think, they brought back Mike Williams. We'll see if that matters at all. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but he gets his guy back. They draft a wide receiver in the 2nd round. They still have Quentin Johnson. And now he gets Ladd McConkey in his 2nd season, where he already has built the connection with him. And, he's more familiar with this offense. So I do expect a pretty big jump up from him from last year in terms of overall scoring. And I think he's a really good value at 10. I don't know if he has top 5 potential right now at this moment in time, but I am fine with saying I won't be surprised if he ends around quarterback 6 or 7 next year.
Yeah, I think the thing you have to decide is, and we've talked about this a lot because we've gone through all these teams. We have Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jane Daniels, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow, I should say, as your top 5. And then you get to 6, and you want to take a shot on Mahomes and go and hopefully hits the ceiling. Probably not. Do you think Baker Mayfield's going to duplicate some of his numbers? Probably not. And then you go to Kyler Murray. He's coming off an off season. If he's not running, he's not going to get you that value that you're looking for. And Bo Nix, I mean, he had a good rookie season and he compiled, but I don't think you're going to be excited in year 2 of Bo Nix. I just don't think that's going to happen, because I think the Broncos might run the ball here better this season, and that would make Nix less appealing. Well, I think the Chargers could open things up even more here. They have the most talented quarterback. Let's just keep that in mind. This is a rare talent in terms of physical presence, his arm, his athleticism. They can do anything they want if they open up the playbook. With Justin Herbert, I mean, I know he has to execute and not look like the playoff version of himself, but if he can just kind of settle in, which we saw a lot happening last year, again, I think this guy has such a high ceiling because he's just got so much immense talent. He looks the part. We saw it in his rookie season. We know how good this guy can be if he has the right direction, the right play calls, and the right weapons. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. Again, Harbaugh and Roman, they saw that. I think it just took a while to connect with him in the right way, because he's a little bit different from what they're used to, right? Lamar Jackson, Colin Kaepernick, some of the guys that they used to work with. So I think Herbert, they're realizing that blend of, okay, we can push the ball deep, but this guy can run, take off when we need it, and also spread the ball around, and we're okay giving him a high volume. So I'm excited to see what Herbert can do. Again, we knew that it was going to be tough last year. We called it with the running game and all that. He still kind of surprised us and finished almost in the top 12, right? I thought that was still better than we thought he was, and I think he's going to do it again from QB10.
I think Mahomes and Herbert are very similar in the way that they have the skill set to be a great fantasy quarterback. We already know they're a great NFL quarterback. And, sometimes their defense is just really good, but they've, making it so they don't have to throw as much. But I think they both have the risk and the ceiling, and you can get one guy 2.5 runs later in Herbert. So I would just much rather go with Herbert than Mahomes if I'm going with one of those two. But yeah, overall, I do just think Herbert is one of the best values among these quarterbacks in this draft this year. We are going to get into his pass catchers, and Ladd McConkey is a pricey one. He's sitting at wide receiver 11. We have to decide if he's worth that cost, and then also figure out, is there anyone else we want to roster in this receiving group? We'll get to that right after we hear from one of our sponsors.
This episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, the NBA action has come to a close. Congratulations to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They have knocked off the Indiana Pacers in 7 games to claim the NBA title. That means we're not going to see NBA action in the regular season for a while, but there are a lot of summer sports in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball, under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. And check it out. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. So we got plenty of action to get in, whether you're looking for a same-game parlay and mixing up a few bets, or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning. FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. New to FanDuel, that's great for you because new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Just open up the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Again, that's FanDuel, FanDuel.com. Check out the new daily promotions only at FanDuel.com. Get in the action here all summer long. All right, Michelle, it is time to get into this wide receiver core, and Ladd McConkey is the clear leader. The second-year player, he was spectacular last year. I mean, he was really good for what you wanted here with really his value. I mean, you were taking him more in the late 30s to early 40s. He ends up as wide receiver 18 on average. Stays healthy, ends up as the wide receiver 12 overall. Well, he's ranked one spot ahead of that. He's wide receiver 11. Check out the names that are behind Ladd McConkey in the rankings. Jackson Smith and Jigba. We know I already love him. T. Higgins, we've talked about him a lot. Now you're getting interesting, right, with Garrett Wilson, Tyreek Hill, and Mike Evans. So where do you see McConkey fitting, Michelle, in the drafts? And is this too high of a cost to go all in on him as a wide receiver 1 in the top 12?
Originally I was like, this is too high, right? When I first put his ranking into the document and was thinking about it, and then I dug in deeper, and I don't actually know. It might be completely fair because I mean, he has a draft capital, right? 34th overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft. They spent a very, very early draft pick on him. He had a great rookie season in fantasy and in real life. He was tied as a wide receiver 12 overall, wide receiver 18 on average. And again, just like Justin Herbert's season had that bad beginning and then great second half from weeks 8 through 18. I mean, that correlates with when Ladd McConkey broke out. So from weeks 8 through 18, McConkey was averaging 15 points per game and half PPR. That was actually during that span, that was actually ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. by 1 spot and a few spots ahead of Malik Neighbors. And I was thinking, well, he needs so many targets and receptions to get his fantasy points. But that's just not really true. I don't know why I had that thought. I mean, he was averaging 15 yards per reception from weeks 8 through 18. He only had 112 targets last year. There is a lot of room for growth for him. There's not a lot of vacated targets. It's really just Josh Palmer gone with his 65 targets. However, they didn't pass a ton last year, right? We saw the passing increase towards the second half of the year, but they should pass more often. And McConkey in his second year should earn more targets. And I don't think the addition of Mike Williams is going to steal a bunch. Maybe Trey Harris has a good rookie season, but I think those targets actually increase as of next year. So I'm fine with his ranking at wide receiver 11.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about Ladd McConkey. I think he's a complete receiver that you can put him inside, you can put him outside. He's really the definition of a go-to guy you want in the NFL, where he's got versatility in alignment, but also can get open anywhere on the field. He can stretch the field when you need it. So I think he's a complete receiver and a guy that definitely I'm going to have on a lot of my rosters. I mean, I'm going to go for the youthful upside. I'm going to say between him and Jackson Smith-Njigba, those are two exciting guys I'm looking for as now true number ones on their team overall. I think I like both of their potentials here because they're so versatile. They can line up in different spots. They can make big plays. They can make the tough catches underneath. So I'm really excited. I mean, if Justin Herbert spikes, we know it's not going to happen without McConkey because they're still trying to figure out the rest of the receiving core. So he's the clear go-to guy. It's not even a question here. Quentin Johnson flashed more as like a occasional downfield threat as a red zone guy, but that's going to be cut into, right? Trey Harris and Mike Williams are more going to cut into that type of receiver than what you're going to see. The tight end really stays status quo. You lose Stone Smart and Hayden Hurst. Basically, a mashup of them is into Tyler Conklin now with Will Dissly. So there's not much change elsewhere. The change that is really affecting this team is that Harris and Williams are there, maybe to push Johnson a little bit, but no one's really there to push McConkey the way that we might have expected. And you look at the targets, I mean, again, yeah, there's those healthy dose of wide receiver targets. They're 88 overall, 65, again, as you mentioned, from Palmer. So a good chunk of those definitely come here. And the others will be more replaced. Like I said, Smart and Hurst by the tight ends. J.K. Dobbins will be replaced by the new receiver. But that's the void there that we're looking at. How much is he going to cut into that Palmer work? And how much are they going to scrap for it as Harris and Williams cut into what Johnson does? So I just think the targets are going to be insane for Ladd McConkey. And just based on that, the big plays, the touchdowns, yards, catches, I think he definitely could finish in the top 12. So I don't think this is too rich at all. I'm not sure you're going to get a lot of value from him, but just don't kind of buy to that he's overrated because he's here, because I think there legitimately is reason, so many like the statistical and situational reasons to believe that Ladd McConkey is going to be the elite wide receiver one.
Yeah, I'm with you with everything you just said. Now, is there anyone else we're interested among these Chargers pass catchers? Quentin Johnston, he had his 8 touchdowns last year, 711 yards. I mean, there was a few good games in there for Johnson and a bunch of really, really bad games. But right now he's sitting as the wide receiver 61 in consensus rankings. He was wide receiver 41 on average last year. Trey Harris, they took in the second round of this draft, sitting at wide receiver 63 rank. I really liked him coming out of Ole Miss. Had a big season with over 1,000 receiving yards in just 8 games played. He's a big body, 6'2", 205. And I think he's NFL ready. He's the older age prospect. He can run all the routes. He has the route tree down. So I do think he's ready to go to play a decent amount of snaps right off the bat. Yeah, Mike Williams, who's coming back to the Chargers after a year being away from them with the Jets and Steelers. Absolute disaster of a season. Wide receiver, 87 rank. And then tight ends, they just, every year we want the Chargers to find elite tight end, and they kind of just go with the old vets. Will Dissly sitting at tight end 38 rank. He was tight end 27 on average last year. And then Tyler Conklin, they added him in free agency. Tight end 42 rank. He was tight end 23 on average last season with the Jets. Among this group, any of them that you're interested in taking late in drafts?
Well, I just kind of explained why I'm maybe off the Johnson, Harris, Williams trio. Like they could all cut into each other and eat into each other's role here, right? But I'm a little intrigued by the tight ends. The problem is I didn't want them to add Tyler Conklin. I thought they were going to go get an alpha here to go in that direction. Dissly, again, has had some fantasy value, and so has Conklin, really. I mean, independently in the top 12 at his position. But Dissly's problem is he just can't stay healthy. Going back to his days in Seattle, like, if he had been healthy on the field, I mean, he's flashed before, but how much do they trust him, even though they brought him back over those other tight ends? And now you have Conklin, who's got some decent receiving potential. So if it wasn't split, I might be a little bit more interested, but I could see one of these guys becoming a guy that just kind of gets cheapy touchdowns, right, in the situation. And Will Dissly, I think, is a little bit more like the field stretcher. Conklin is more the short area guy. So maybe I'm saying maybe take a flyer in Conklin deep as a tight end too, but that's about it. Like, I don't want to invest too much, and this is probably why I love McConkey, and I also think this is going to mean a lot of good pass catching opportunities for the running backs as well. So I think this is just kind of a streamlined offense where they're like, okay, we're going to run We're going to throw deep, and we're not going to worry too much about a little bit in the middle, right? Like, we don't need to feed all these people the ball. We just want to have McConkey be the go-to guy. We want some work out of the 12 personnel with the 2 tight end sets, throw the ball to the backs when our quarterback is in trouble, and go from there. I don't think they're going to force it to some of these other guys. And again, I don't like that committee approach for that so-called tall outside wide receiver. So I kind of hate this the passing group, and we're endorsing Justin Herbert overall. But again, that really comes down to more the design of the offense, and that Herbert's going to get it done with anybody, where I don't see individual numbers from any of these other guys standing out beyond McConkey.
Yeah, I think they're all kind of going to hurt each other. There's no one right at this moment that if I was drafting, I'd be targeting late in drafts. I do think Tyler Conklin will be kind of that streaming tight end that we're going to be able to play throughout the season against certain matchups. And then, I'll be keeping a close eye on Trey Harris in training camp and the first couple weeks of the season to see how he's utilized. But besides that, not too interested. Now, this running back group, I mean, as soon as Najee Harris signed a free agency, we're like, oh, wow, like Najee Harris landed in a great spot. He's going to be an easy guy to rank top 20. Well, then they messed things up by drafting Omarion Hampton in the first round, making it very, very confusing to know which guy to draft. But we're going to figure it out and discuss which one we prefer to close up today's show right after a quick break. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, so right now we have Omarion Hampton, the rookie running back out of UNC. They drafted him 22nd overall this draft. He's sitting at running back 20 overall in consensus rankings, the highest ranked rookie running back besides outside of Ashton Genty. And then you have Najee Harris sitting at running back 33 in ranks. He was running back 25 on average last year with the Steelers. We know, like, he had that big rookie season for fantasy, and then since then it's been a big disappointment for him. Last year for the Chargers, J.K. Dobbins was the running back 17 on average with 14.3 points per game. Lots of good games from him. So there should be a very fantasy relevant back in this backfield, right? It comes down to, is this going to be a full-on 50-50 split? Is it going to be hard for Hampton to get the workload over a veteran in Najee Harris, or is Harris just going to be sitting on the sidelines? What is your take on this backfield, Vinny?
Yeah, let's look at what's vacated here from what we had with Dobbins and Edwards. Essentially 1,270 rushing yards. There are 13 touchdowns, so that's the big number that we're looking at. But these guys were only involved for 35 catches, so they weren't involved that much in the passing game. But I think that can change between these two guys. I think they're going to use them a little bit more. I'd say Harris does have the experience. I mean, that was a lot of his stat padding early as a rookie, that he caught all those passes because they needed somebody there. His rushing wasn't all that efficient, but he really helped himself with those catches as a rookie and really helped his cause. So we know he can do that if needed. But yeah, it just kind of confused us a little bit. Like, okay, they spent decent money on Harris and they go out, use major draft capital again on Hampton when this team could have gone in a lot of different directions. So I kind of follow what the team does in the offseason and look at it. And I look at the Harris investment. It's modest, right? It's not insane in relation to what they paid Dobbins. And then you look at Hampton, what do they invest a first-round pick? I think they want Hampton to get the key touches in this offense. Harris might be annoying. I think he might be like a bigger, beefed up, a little bit more versatile version of Gus Edwards. And I think that was a bit of the concern last year, right? I mean, Dobbins and Edwards, we know, going back to the Ravens, a lot of durability issues. So that was a concern. Dobbins still did go back to missing time, even though he was a strong candidate for comeback player of the year. He still had some injury time missed. So I think they wanted to get upgrade in terms of fresh legs, right? You get Hampton, he comes in there, upgrade over Dobbins. Don't have to worry about ACL tears or anything in the NFL. He's got fresh legs ready to run from North Carolina. Harris, you don't have to worry about just like telegraphing plays, right? When Edwards is there, he's a zero. With Harris, you know, he can catch passes if you want. So that tells me, Michelle, I try to put all the puzzle pieces together, that Hampton is going to be kind of seen and they're going to give him every opportunity to be the lead back. If he handles his pass protection well for Herbert, I think he'll be the lead. Harris will be significant. Like, I think they'll get him in there. It might be annoying, however, because he might come in some goal line situations. They might be more interchanging, like one maybe have 2 series for Hampton, 1 for Harris. So it might be a little frustrating overall. I think you have to be patient if you're going to draft Hampton. That said, I still want to get Hampton over Harris. Again, I've seen what Harris can do. I think I know what Hampton can do. I think he can be explosive and special. And I'm a rookie guy. I want to see the new shiny toy. So I think Harris was a nice upgrade they needed over Edwards because of his durability. And that was a big part. Let's not forget that. He played through everything in Pittsburgh. So they need a durable backup. But I think Hampton is the guy that gives them that bigger play element, does a little bit more as a receiver, and really kicks their offense into the next level that they're looking for with the Greg Roman.
Yeah, see, I think that Najee Harris is going to be the starter and the lead back for a good chunk to start the season. It's just really hard for rookies to overtake veterans. I mean, we even saw it with Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs in the rookie year, right? Like Tyler Algier and David Montgomery getting too many touches. Now, those two are special talents, so they still were able to overcome it. I don't put Omarion Hampton in their level of talent coming out of school. I think he's really good. I think he can be a really good player in the NFL. I just wouldn't put him that, electric. And then this situation, for some reason, reminds me so much of the Browns back in 2018 when they had Carlos Hyde and Nick Chubb. And every time Nick Chubb touched the ball, he would take it for a 60-yard touchdown. But they're still set on Carlos Hyde needing to be the starter and the lead back. And Nick Chubb was impossible to play because you needed that 160-yard touchdown to play until they traded Hyde away after week 6. And then Nick Chubb took over. It's just really, really hard for rookies to just completely take away a veteran's job, especially at the running back position. Do I think by mid-season Hampton could be the guy? Sure. But when you're looking at these draft costs and Hampton's sitting at running back 20 and Najee's at running back 33, I actually think Najee Harris is the better guy to just wait and draft, take him, and then maybe trade for Hampton after the first 5 weeks of the season or whatever, because he's going to sooner or later take over. But I'm just not going to take Hampton to hold him, hope that he wins the job, hope that it's not a 50-50 split, and hope that he has insane efficiency to make up for that. I would just rather take the shot on Najee, who's going much later, and it's not too much of a risk then.
Yeah, I think it just kind of depends what kind of drafter you are and what kind of makeup your team has from before, right? If you're a swing for the fences person, you're like, okay, I want this situation no matter what with Hampton. I want him because I think he can be the explosive back that can take over at some point. Like you mentioned, that's a really good comparison that you made. And sometimes it's what we want and what versus what the team wants, right? The team might be slow to adapt to the change. Like, we could see that Nick Chubb was pretty explosive and probably should have touched the ball a lot more than Carlos Hyde, but it took them a little while, right? There's that veteran obligation. That's where that comes in, what you said about displacing a veteran is hard for a rookie because they do the little things right that they trust a little bit more, especially Harris. He does all those little things right, even if he's not.
He's a very likable guy, which does matter.
He's likable, and he does all the little things where he's going to block and keep Justin Herbert upright and all those things, right? So we'll see how it develops. But again, how much can he hold off Hampton that's upside? That's going to be the question here. So again, I tend to draft for the defenses, and I might look more in the second half. I might try to find a different solution here. I just think Harris might be capped a little bit as a flex play, where I think if Hampton sees a bigger workload, I think he can shoot past his RB20 value. So in terms of the projected value, I think you might get Harris to be more productive early. But if you're looking in the bigger picture and you can say, look, I'm going to go get someone to hedge my bets here with Hampton, right? To say he might not be startable as I'd like, but I'm going to get an RB3 or flex. Maybe it's Harris, right? Maybe you draft both of these guys and say, I'm going to play this guy early and then hold on to the next guy to explode. So I think there's different ways to look at it. But again, I think Harris would be the guy that you were going to say safe and you need a flex and RB2 early. That's the way you go. But if you're looking for, hey, can someone win me my league potentially if he gets an opportunity, you say it's Hampton. So again, that comes down to a bit of drafting strategy and how much you're willing to risk. But you're right. His price is still pretty high at RB20, but I think I'm willing to do it because it's not in the top 15. He's not quite as overhyped as I thought he would be.
Yeah, running back 20 is like taking him over guys like DeAndre Swift or David Montgomery. And I don't think that's like outrageous. Just a little too pricey for me particularly, but maybe I'll change my mind as we hit training camp and new storylines come out and new news about how they're utilizing this backfield. But that will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We'll be back on Wednesday talking about the Denver Broncos, and then on Friday hitting on the Las Vegas Raiders to close out the AFC West. We will see you then. Bye, y'all.